Okay, guys, today we're going to be reading Too Many Pumpkins by Linda White. That's the author, and the illustrator is Megan Lloyd. So let's get going. Every year at springtime, Rebecca Estelle planted just enough seeds in her garden to grow vegetables for the long winter. She planted carrots and beans, tomatoes and peas, corn and rutabagas. She grew a little bit of everything, except pumpkins, because Rebecca Estelle hated pumpkins. When she was a little girl, money had been scarce. For an entire month, all there had been to eat were pumpkins. Baked pumpkins, steamed pumpkins, bottled pumpkins, stewed pumpkins, mashed pumpkins, rotten pumpkins, breakfast pumpkins, lunch pumpkins, dinner pumpkins. Enough with the pumpkins. When these things finally improved, there was more than enough money to buy food. Rebecca Estelle decided that she would never eat pumpkins again, or even look at one. Not ever. And she didn't, until one autumn day after Rebecca Estelle's hair had turned snowy white. She was raking the leaves that fell each fall from her black walnut tree, and her cat, Esmeralda, was scattering them just as quickly. All of a sudden, the pumpkin truck passed by. Oh, she heard it coming, and she knew what it was. It rumbled by at harvest time every year. She turned her back and concentrated on picking up the last fallen leaf. She managed to ignore the truck until splat! An enormous pumpkin tumbled off the truck and smashed into slimy orange smithereens all over the edge of her yard. "Come back here and get this pumpkin!" she yelled, but the driver sped away. "Well, I won't touch it," Rebecca Estelle insisted, instead getting her shovel from the barn. "And I won't look at it," she added as she shoveled dirt on top of the pumpkin pieces. "And I won't think about it ever again," she declared. And she didn't. Until spring. When Rebecca Estelle was admiring the new sprouts in her garden, she noticed Esmeralda playing with some big green leaves growing at the edge of the yard. "How curious," she said, going over to inspect them. "I didn't think I planted anything there." Then Rebecca Estelle remembered the pumpkin truck and the slimy pumpkin smithereens. "Pumpkins!" she cried in disgust. "Come out of there, Esmeralda. I will not water these plants. I will not tend to them. I will just ignore them, and then they will die." She picked up Esmeralda and stomped inside, but a week later, when Rebecca Estelle peered out her window, she saw that the vines had grown. She trampled into the barn, got her garden tools, and went to work on the pumpkin vines. She cut and dug until not a one was left growing. "There, now there will be no pumpkins." She smiled and went back inside. But next week, when she was weeding the garden, she noticed that the pumpkin vines had grown back. Rebecca Estelle marched inside and snapped the curtains shut. "The only thing to do is ignore them. They won't grow if I don't take care of them," she muttered. So rain or shine, all spring and summer, she never looked out the front window. She only used the back door and never even glanced towards the vines. Neither did Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle ignored the vines so well that in time she forgot why she wasn't even using the front door. Until one autumn day when she and Esmeralda went to rake the leaves that fell each fall from the black walnut tree in front of the house. "Pumpkins!" Rebecca Estelle shrieked. Pumpkin vines had twined under the bushes, over the bird bath, and through the porch rails, onto the rocking chair. The entire yard was a sea of plump, round pumpkins. Rebecca Estelle could no longer ignore them. She plopped down on the pumpkin nearest to her, putting her hands over her face. "What will I do, Esmeralda? How will I get rid of this many pumpkins?" she cried. She thought and she thought. Her mind went back to all the pumpkins she had eaten as a young girl, when the pumpkins were the only food her family had. Well, I can't let 'em stay here, she told Esmeralda. Some people might need these pumpkins, and I suppose there are folks crazy enough to like 'em. We'll just give 'em away. And she marched off to get a wheelbarrow. Rebecca Estelle struggled to lift the first pumpkin, and then the second and the third. She huffed and puffed as she wheeled and loaded the wheelbarrow into the lane. I'm too tired to deliver these pumpkins now, Rebecca Estelle grumbled. She mopped her brow with her apron and wondered what to do next. Maybe if I make 'em into pies, they would be easier to deliver. Oh, such a nuisance. So she went to work. She scooped out the slimy seeds from the pumpkins and cut away the shells. She boiled the pumpkin meat and she mixed it with eggs, milk, sugar, flour, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Cloves made rich pies. Then Rebecca Estelle made pumpkin tarts and pumpkin muffins, pumpkin cakes, pumpkin bread, pumpkin pudding, and pumpkin cookies, until pumpkin dishes spilled out of every cupboard, drawer, cubby hole, and the seeds were a mountain in the corner. Well, that's the first batch, Rebecca Estelle said, dusting her floury hands. Now we need to deliver them. She put them in the wheelbarrow outside the kitchen door, then loaded it up with some more pumpkin treats. When it was full, just the thought of delivering those pumpkin dishes made Rebecca Estelle tired. If only people would just come get 'em. Then she had an idea. Rebecca Estelle whirled around and hurried back to the house for a kitchen knife. This should get people to come, Rebecca Estelle cried. She took her knife and sat in the middle of the pumpkin patch. She carved a smiling face on a round pumpkin and a scary snaggletooth face on a tall, thin pumpkin, and Boo on a short, squat pumpkin. She was so busy carving these pumpkins that she hardly noticed how dark it was getting. When she could no longer see, she went in to the shelf on the back porch and grabbed a sack of candles that she kept for emergencies. If this doesn't get people to come here, we'll have to deliver this all ourselves, she muttered to Esmeralda. Rebecca Estelle peered into the darkness for a long time. She didn't see anything. Still, she watched until finally she saw a light, faint at first and then brighter, then more lights bobbing through the night. Here they come, she shouted. Esmeralda, let's heat up some apple cider. Young and old, everyone in town came. Rebecca Estelle, we thought you hated pumpkins, they said. We saw your jack-o'-lanterns from the end of the road and came for a closer look. I was hoping you would, said Rebecca Estelle. Where did you ever find all these pumpkins? People asked. I came on them quite by accident, Rebecca Estelle said, smiling. Would you like some pumpkin pie? There's plenty. She winked at Esmeralda. Everyone enjoyed the pumpkin pie and the cider and had a good time. So did Rebecca Estelle. And when they were ready to go home, she made sure each carried a jack-o'-lantern and a bag full of seeds for roasting and a pumpkin treat. Rebecca Estelle gave away everything that reminded her of the pumpkins that she had always hated, until all that remained was a handful of seeds, and she tucked those snugly in her pocket, where they would be safe until planting time next spring. All right, so that was too many pumpkins. And when we read that story, we started with a character, Rebecca Estelle, who was not happy with what she had. She did not like the pumpkins in her life. She did not want the pumpkins at all. But then at the end, she realized that it wasn't so awful. So make sure that you pay attention to how the character changed and to what happened in the story. Think about the sequence of events. What happened first? Well, the pumpkin fell off the truck first. What happened after that? And then what happened after that? Think about the ending. How did she feel? What happened at the end? Again, this was Too Many Pumpkins. Thanks for reading with me.